I'd like to welcome everybody to the April 21st, 2008 meeting of the Salina City Commission. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Vanier.
Here.
Commissioner Joka.
Here.
Commissioner Larson.
Here.
Commissioner Peck.
Here.
Commissioner Perney.
Here.
I'd like to invite everybody to stand and join in the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We now have the Citizens Forum, a time for citizens to come before the Commission on any topic not on the official agenda. Is there anyone here today? If not, awards and proclamations.
Item 4.1, the day of May 1st, 2008, as a day of prayer in the city of Salina. Roberta Huseman will read the proclamation.
Whereas the National Day of Prayer is a tradition first proclaimed by Continental Congress in 1775, and whereas in 1952 the National Day of Prayer became an event inaugurated by leadership groups in the United States Senate and House of Representatives, and whereas in 1988 legislation was unanimously ratified by both houses of Congress and signed by President Ronald Reagan, stating that the National Day of Prayer was to be observed on the first Thursday every May, and whereas this year will mark the 57th consecutive observance of the National Day of Prayer, and whereas it is fitting and proper to give thanks to God by observing this day in the city of Salina, when all may acknowledge our blessings and express our gratitude for them, while recognizing the need for strengthening religious and moral values of our city, state, and nation. And I now, therefore, I, John K. Vanier II, Mayor of the City of Salina, do hereby proclaim May 1, 2008 as a day of prayer throughout the city of Salina, and I urge all citizens to observe this day in ways relevant to its importance and significance.
Thank you. And would you like to tell us about the plans for the day?
The only plans that I have heard about are our prayer breakfast, which will be at the Bicentennial Center that morning from 7 to 8:30. Tickets are $9 and can be purchased at the Bicentennial Center. The youth group leaders of our city are doing a day of prayer on their own, separate from our activities. Other than that, I don't know of any other activities.
Very good. Thank you. I have a signed copy of the proclamation. We don't have any public hearings. The consent agenda.
Item 6.1, approve the minutes of April 14, 2008. Item 6.2, resolution number 086510, authorizing agreement for workers' compensation third-party administrative services with CCMSI Incorporated. Item 6.3, resolution number 086511, acknowledging receipt of the Kenwood Oakdale Park Planning Team Report. Item 6.4, resolution number 086512, authorizing aircraft rescue and firefighting agreement with the Salina Airport Authority. Item 6.5, approval of a sole source purchase of 2 monitor defibrillator pacers from Zoll Medical Corporation in the amount of $44,708.60.
Is there any item anyone would like pulled from the consent agenda? If not, entertain some action.
Mayor Vanier, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Development business.
Item 7.1, first reading ordinance number 08-10444, amending section 42-65 of the Salina Code pertaining to landscape regulation by implementing xeriscaping in commercial landscaped areas.
Mr. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners,
The City of Salina has had landscaping regulations in place since 1994, and those regulations are part of the zoning ordinance. They apply to new development and substantial redevelopment of property within the city, and they specifically apply to our commercial business areas and multifamily developments. There are some specific exceptions. Our light industrial and heavy industrial zoned areas are exempt. The downtown central business district is exempt. Our university zoning districts are exempt, and single-family residential and two-family residential home sites are exempt. So what happens when someone submits a plan or a building permit for a new commercial structure is that a landscape plan is submitted as part of that site plan submittal. It also can come into play in a redevelopment of a site. For example, there was an old service station at the corner of Ohio and Crawford. Since that was completely removed from the site and the site was redeveloped with a Subway store, the landscaping requirements applied to that Subway store as they did to the McDonald's that was redeveloped across the street. Again, our residential subdivisions are great consumers of water for lawn and other irrigation purposes, but they're not subject to any landscaping regulations at this time. The landscaping, where it is required, is to emphasize the streetscape. So it's the required landscaping is located in the front yard area between buildings and streets and parking lots and streets. And there's a formula based on the size and depth of your lot that determines how much landscaped area has to be set aside, and based on that, a number of trees or other plants have to be placed within that area. The remaining areas that aren't formally landscaped have to be planted to grass. The city does not currently require irrigation. If you have a landscape on your property, you're not required to irrigate it. You're required to indicate that you do have some permanent supply of water to provide to it. When we went into the watering restrictions, and at the time of the 2007 Water Action Plan, the planning staff was asked to look at the landscape regulations to make sure that we weren't requiring businesses and property owners to install landscaping that then was going to require intensive watering to maintain through the summer months. And one concept that emerged from that was the use of xeriscaping, which is really to try to emphasize native plants, drought-tolerant plants that can do well through the summer months without intensive watering. The question then was, what are the options for implementing xeriscaping? And of course, one option is to require it. Instead of submitting a landscape plan, that you must submit a xeriscaping plan using only low water use plants. Another option would be to provide incentives for people to utilize xeriscaping instead of other types of landscaping. Those incentives could be an adjustment to their landscape plan. There's also a possibility of some monetary rebate or monetary incentive if you use xeriscaping, but I would defer any thoughts about that probably to Martha Tasker about how that might be implemented. And the other option, of course, is to try to encourage the use of it through public education. So we have kind of moved from the discussion we've had in the past of whether we should require landscaping, because one of the largest causes of landscaping plans failing is lack of water supply through the summer months, to now looking at ways to reduce consumption. And so because the Water Action Plan used the term require xeriscape landscaping, this was drafted in a way that makes it a requirement that if you submit a landscape plan, it must include only plants that are on the attached list, which was developed in consultation with the county extension office, the city forester, and consulting with some arboretums around the state. So this has been discussed at several different study sessions with the Planning Commission. We've had local landscape contractors and irrigation contractors present at those. We didn't get any specific comments back on this particular draft. Planning Commission did make a recommendation to incorporate it into the landscape regulations as a requirement similar to the requirement we have for using trees from the city's recommended tree list. So what this would do is say that in addition to your tree plantings, if you have shrubs, ornamental grasses, or turf grasses, it has to be from the recommended list. I think the biggest impact, and maybe the most difficult, would be the transition from cool season grasses like fescue to warm season grasses. And of course the options are there to completely prohibit future use of cool season grasses or limit it and allow for some use of cool season grasses and either limit it by a certain percentage of the site or square footage. And we had some discussion at the Planning Commission. You have in your packet a site plan, landscape plan from the Popeyes chicken site. And out in their location, they have kind of a formal area that's around their store and parking lot where they have fescue and formal plantings. They also have a place where there's a gas line easement that goes through there that they can't build on or put parking on or anything, so they have planted it to grass, but they have planted it to fescue grass, and they also have it irrigated. So they have quite an extensive area there of green space that they are irrigating. And so one impact of this, if this became a mandatory requirement, that area, instead of being planted to fescue, would have to be planted to Bermuda or buffalo, which should reduce the amount of summertime watering. So we have identified for you several alternatives. One would be to endorse the Planning Commission recommendation, the proposed amendments, by requiring that plantings used in a landscape plan be from the recommended xeriscape plant list for Salina. You could approve the amendment to the landscape regulations with any additions or deletions or modifications that you think are appropriate. You could refer this item back to the Planning Commission or others for additional study or public input, which might include things such as looking at incentives or rebates or things of that nature. Or you could decline to approve the proposed text amendment and provide direction to staff. I think with that, I'd be happy to address any questions you have and any ties back to the Water Action Plan. I think I would defer those to Ms. Tasker.
Questions of Mr. Andrew?
So how are these things going to go hand in hand? Exactly what you just said. Right now, you're recommending that they use xeriscaping. How are you policing that or enforcing that? And then when we do have the water restrictions, how is that going to go hand in hand? How will they water their landscaped area?
Well, I think what we have never had before and developed as part of this is the list that you have in your packet, which is
very comprehensive.
A local list that we've never had that before to give out to people to say, if you use these types of plants, they're more likely to survive and you're more likely not to need so much water to keep them alive in the summer.
So this is new. This list is new.
The list is new. So what we have today is we have a requirement in the ordinance that says if you're going to include trees in your landscape plan, that the species, the varieties that you use need to be from the City of Salina's recommended tree list, with the city forester has put together and updates from year to year. It doesn't say anything about shrubs, grasses, turf grass, anything like that. So the idea with this list is that if let's say a Bank 6, which is a new plan on South Ohio, if they came in with a landscape plan and we reviewed it, if this became a requirement, we would review the list of plantings and the grasses they were proposing to see if it came from this list. If it didn't, we would ask them to modify it to be from the list. The alternative is to just present them with a list and encourage them, or a third alternative would be to say, if you use these plant varieties, then the city will offer you this incentive or some other opportunity or encouragement to use that.
Well, when we have the watering schedules, are businesses exempt?
They're not exempt from the schedule, no.
Right, so that's why you're recommending these, so that they would not use as much water, especially during the summertime. How are you, my question was, and how are you policing that or enforcing that? Do you literally go back out and see if they planted what they have submitted?
Yes.
Okay.
So we do that anyway. It's just that we go out and see if the plants that they've shown on the plan are actually there and if they made any substitutions. But we don't. If they want to plant fescue grass, we just go out to see that the grass has been planted. Or if they want to use a type of shrub or other ground cover that requires a great deal of water, we just go out and confirm that it's there. We do go out, and so the tie-in would be that we would not approve a plan that had water-intensive varieties on it.
Commissioner, to add to that as well, you know, we're used to seeing the application in, like, for example, last summer of water restrictions, but I'm not going to take too much from what you're going to hear in about a week from now when we talk about water and water rates and so forth. But I think what we're going to be looking at is more of a conservation rate system that a lot of other communities have used, where restrictions would come in only probably when, you know, peak use gets so high that we can't control it any other way, but not to get into using strict restrictions all the time to provide that flexibility. But in water conservation rates, we believe are going to be able to do that. So we'll have more information for you next week on that. But the intention of that is that rather than to have a no water options, which we know are not practical, to have low water options. And so I think that where we're going with that will fit hand in hand with what Dean's talking about.
Does the city use the plants and trees and flowers and everything off of this list also?
We're moving in that
direction.
I would say that, you know, the first phase of the South 9th Street improvements, that would not probably qualify as xeriscaping, but certainly what was done with North Ohio and looking at, I think the diamond that's being built out by the Markley Tower is going to have either Bermuda or buffalo grass field surface instead of fescue. So the city is moving that direction also.
Okay, good.
But I think obviously we have to set an example if
Absolutely.
if that's what we're going to look to, if this becomes a requirement. And I guess that's my illustration that I gave to the Planning Commission when the Lowe's Home Improvement Center came in and they submitted their plans. They had simply cut and pasted a plan and a list of plants from their Huntsville, Alabama store. And so we looked at that, City Forester looked at that and said, well, if you plant these in Salina, none of them will survive. And so you need to amend your plan to local conditions. So that is what we do in reviewing it on the front end. And then when anybody has a final inspection, we go out and inspect their landscaping prior to opening, just to see that they've been consistent with the plan.
Other questions? Comments? Anyone from the public care to comment? No. I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move that we adopt first reading ordinance number 0810444, amending section 42-65 of the Salina Code pertaining to landscaping regulations by implementing xeriscaping in commercial landscaped areas.
Second.
It's been,
Quick comment before we vote.
okay, it's been moved and seconded that we adopt on first reading ordinance 0810444, amending section 4265 of the Salina Code pertaining to landscaping regulations.
Just a quick comment before we vote. Although necessary, these measures are largely cosmetic, since 85% of all the water use in the state's for ag uses. But as long as higher levels of government won't get involved, for example, and quit subsidizing corn production for ethanol, those kind of things, we're stuck. So this is something we got to do.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Administration.
Item 8.1, approval of request to assist the establishing of an unmanned aircraft systems program office at Kansas State at Salina's Applied Aviation Research Center.
Mr. Gage.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Kansas State at Salina has recently established an Applied Aviation Research Center. Basically what they do there, they focus on projects and research related to general aircraft aviation technologies, operation, training, maintenance, and also an emphasis on unmanned aircraft systems. You've heard them called UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, and some of you even had a chance to see those out the training area out west of town not too long ago. The request is for an SEDIC, a Salina Economic Development Incentives Council grant in the amount of $100,000. The intention is to assist in establishing an unmanned aerial systems program office in Salina. This is in coordination with the Salina Airport Authority, with the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce, and with the Great Plains Joint Regional Training Center. The establishment of a UAV program office is a new and considered to be a multi-year effort. It's intended to take advantage of Kansas State's aviation, technology, and operational expertise. The initial focus is to respond to government and industrial needs for operator training, flight planning, mission control, flight test, and future commercial operations. Basically, I'll give you the simplified, and we have others here later that can maybe make this a little more colorful, but when you look at a manned aircraft, there are specific protocols. You don't just go out to an airport and take off. There are many protocols related with doing that, and those are established by the Federal Aviation Administration. The existence of the unmanned aerial vehicles is a fairly new thing, though it has been used in the military for some time, but it's still an up-and-coming thing there. It's also being used, or needing to be used, much more in homeland security situations, emergency management situations, and even in public safety situations in urbanized areas. And so as a result, it really is an up-and-coming field, and some of those protocols that need to be established in order to fly these in within airspace, in various levels of airspace and restrictions and so forth. But in order to do that, those protocols have to be put in place. And so that's one of the big emphasis that we're talking about locally in Salina. The initial startup funding is intended to consist of approximately $300,000 with approximately $150,000 from K-State, a private contract of about $50,000, the request for $100,000 from the city of Salina. In addition to that, though, there is an appropriation request that is supported by our congressional delegation for 2009 in the amount of $500,000. So the idea is to really partner from all sides to try to get this thing up and going. Obviously, this is for an immediate launch of the program office, and that's really important. The timing is important. The expectation and hope for this is that we'll leverage up to $5 million over 5 years and 13 jobs within the first 18 months. Things go as anticipated. That's what we would hope to see. The SEDIC grant provides some seed money necessary for the future funding. It helps us get started so that leveraging can then occur. There's a strong belief that the opportunity for this project does exist at this time. However, it may not be present in the future, as there are other communities and other states that are emphasizing this. Just to give you an example, there are communities in the following states that are putting resources into this type of technology. not necessarily the area of it that we are, but in this area of the type of technology. These states include North Dakota, New Mexico, Washington, Kentucky, Texas, Arizona, and Mississippi. Military, government, and private industrial players have made it clear that K-State at Salina and a new UAS program office is the key to bringing grants, contracts, and research and development activity to Salina and obviously to Kansas. So it's a big issue. Another sidebar to that as well is there's a study that was a cost type study that was put out by Flint Hill Solutions, a private organization, and they indicated that it's more of a market study. They indicated that UAV technology initiatives expect to invest, that they're specifically UAV technology initiatives, which is an organization, is expected to invest $1 to $2 million a year in K-State Salina's UAV program office under three conditions. One is that the office is effectively and quickly brought up and with UAV air vehicle operational capability. So get the office up and going. That's a big thing. The Kansas Guard UAV initiatives regarding access to airspace are realized. We all know that's part of this for the future. And state and local governments provide the incentives for private industry to invest. So they recognize the need to leverage and partner at the very beginning. They believe if these things can occur, that there can be some significant investment here locally for this program. One thing to take note, this is not your typical SEDIC request, a local industrial expansion with a few jobs. This is a different type of request, even though it does include jobs. We've taken a close look at it. We do believe wholeheartedly that it does meet the intent of the resolution, which guides these types of requests and provides you with the opportunity to fund them. One reason is because it includes both research and highly skilled professional services. There's no question about that. In addition, it's intended to leverage significant outside dollars. That's obviously important to you. We're not redistributing current dollars. We're leveraging significant outside dollars if this works. It includes solid wages and job growth and is expected to provide Kansas State at Salina with an opportunity to respond to a new and fast-growing industrial and technological demand. And it really is an up-and-coming industry. We did include in the report the Wichita State University benefit cost analysis, obviously to look at the benefit cost ratio, and we're comfortable with that ratio. You want to see a number higher than 1, and that's certainly there. You will want to pay close attention to that because it is a little bit different than the traditional review. The funding for this would come from the 12.5% economic development allocation of our special quarter-cent sales tax, which is the funding source for these requests. When we looked at this, we looked at the strategic plan, and we believe that this startup venture with K-State Salina would provide the opportunity to diversify our technical service offerings without question, take advantage of a growing service demand, and hopefully foster the goals that are established here. With that, we provided a couple options. Obviously, one would be to approve the request to assist in establishing an unmanned aircraft systems program office at Kansas State at Salina's Applied Aviation Research Center, an amount not to exceed $100,000. The others to obviously not to approve the request at this time. I would like to say also we have some guests. If you have specific questions that I am not able to answer, that certainly could answer those. One of those guests includes our Kansas State at Salina Dean Dennis Kuhlman, Colonel Randy Roebuck, the commander of our Great Plains Joint Regional Training Center, Tim Rogers, Salina Airport Authority Director. That's the list that we have here. And with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Questions? I don't have one for you, Mr. Gage, but Tim, if I could ask you to briefly describe how this fits in with the Aviation Service Center and some of the plans that you have at the Airport Authority.
I'd be glad to, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission. The Salina Airport Authority, a number of years ago now, at the end of 2005, adopted a strategic plan to develop what we've branded the Salina Aviation Service Center. We have focused in on the creation of aviation and aerospace jobs. The Airport Authority's strategic plan has been incorporated into the Salina, Saline County, Salina Area Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Strategic Plan. And this area of unmanned aircraft was early on identified as how do we find an opportunity for Salina and Saline County to really get into the game and become an active player with unmanned aircraft systems and really new and emerging technology. But it's not so far away from what has been occurring already here with an existing Salina Aviation Aerospace company. CAV Aerospace, for a number of years, has been providing the ice protection systems for the General Atomics Predator UAV UAS system. We've seen that it's been very important for CAV's growth to be a part of this industry and this emerging technology, and we've had a chance then to find a way to get them more involved or get their customer more focused on Salina, Saline County, and Kansas State University at Salina. As we worked on the growth of the Great Plains Joint Regional Training Center and working with Colonel Randy Roebuck, became very apparent that the state was getting requests. We need help and a point of focus on for unmanned aircraft. And one of those requests came to Colonel Roebuck to use restricted airspace at the Smoky Hill Weapons Range. So that was another, again, indicator that we're heading the right direction. And this was a right targeted part of the development of the Salina Aviation Service Center. We believe that this is just the tip of the iceberg, or just the leading edge, so to speak, in aviation terms, the leading edge of the wing that gets us to additional job and job creation. We're very conservative with the estimate of 13 jobs within 18 months as far as the growth. And that adds to the additional growth we've had since 2005. Kind of go back and look at the beginning of our strategic plan. We had 552 jobs identified related with aviation and aerospace. As of March 31st, 659 people are employed with the Aviation Service Center employers, and that's a net change too. We've had jobs that have been lost, we've had jobs that have been gained, but we've had a net gain up to 659. Kansas Inc. did a couple of years ago a study on aviation and aerospace jobs, and they documented that but for every aviation and aerospace job gets created an additional 3 jobs within the economy, within the local and the state economy. That is why the Wichita State University Economic Benefit Analysis comes out as strong as it does. You know, we have, in this case, really government jobs, you know, publicly funded jobs, but yet the economic impact is so great that the benefit cost ratio still exceeds 1 for the city, the county, the school district, and the state. And so this is, again, another measure that this is a good step for us. Today, I mean, I just, before coming down to the City Commission meeting, another call from another private sector part of the UAS, UAV industry. They've seen what's happening at Salina, Kansas. They want to become a part of it. They'd like a call back from somebody to talk about how can they come in and start talking to K-State at Salina, talking to the National Guard, and using the airport, using the facilities, and using the Smoky Hill Weapons Range for their UAV, UAS project. Sorry for the long answer, but hopefully that gives you the background as far as how this fits very well into the strategic plan for the growth of aviation and aerospace jobs.
Thank you.
Thank
Any
you.
questions for Tim? Dr. Kuhlman, what you've cited a couple examples from the University of North Dakota and from New Mexico State. How do you view this for K-State Salina? Enrollment, just the establishment of the office?
Mr. Mayor, members of the Commission, this is a tremendous opportunity, and that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about moving forward quickly. I think that at North Dakota, they saw tremendous growth, and if you the thing that really, when I looked at this to start with, North Dakota was operational in 2004, 2005, somewhere in that period. They're looking right now at $25–26 million worth of activity in a very short time period. New Mexico has only officially been operational for about a year, and they are already looking at over $12 million of documented work that comes on. At North Dakota, the demand for academic programs is stripping their ability to provide it. They have had to close some of the classes because they've got more students that are interested than there is space. So I see that as happening here. When you look at unmanned aerial systems, and then you look at what K-State at Salina does, we've got aviation. Obviously, we've got a top 5 aviation program in the nation. Aviation is definitely in there. But we also have engineering technology. Unmanned aerial systems are controlled by computers. They're controlled by electronics. They're controlled by mechanical systems that are designed. Those are 3 of our primary strengths in our engineering technology programs. These unmanned systems are also managed by a group of individuals that are very, very knowledgeable, which is what our technology management programs do. So when you look at K-State at Salina and where our strengths are right now, this program leverages all of our existing strengths and has tremendous opportunity in all of those areas.
Great, thank you. And by the $151,000 commitment from, I'm assuming that's Salina out of your budget or Manhattan's budget?
No, sir, that's out of my budget. That's
Out of
in
your budget. We've got Manhattan's full support for.
We have Manhattan's full support.
Great, thank you. Any questions?
Dean Kuhlman, can you tell me the other cities in these states where they have similar operations, are the cities compatible in size to Salina?
I do. In North Dakota, I'm not certain what the size of the community is.
Is it?
They're rural types of. They're similar, but I'm not going to say they're exactly our size. I just don't know.
So if there's success in these communities, Salina is one notch above what these other cities are in these other states?
The biggest strength that Salina has that these other institutions do not have is a partnership with the Great Plains Regional Training Center.
Okay.
The other institutions don't have that, and we just had a groundbreaking of Crisis City. We had a groundbreaking and a celebration of the things that are going on out at the Smoky Hill bombing range. Those are all pieces that make this even more attractive.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Any public comment? I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I'd move we approve the request to assist in establishing an unmanned aircraft systems program office at Kansas State at Salina's Applied Aviation Research Center in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the request to establish the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Program Office at Kansas State, Salina. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.3, authorize agreement with Booker, Willis, and Ratliff Corporation to conduct a drainage study for the area around the intersection of Marymount Road and Glen Avenue.
Mr. Place.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. The area of Marymount Road and Glen Avenue has been identified as having inadequate drainage during even minor stormwater events. This study will include data collection on site to determine the drainage area, dynamic stormwater modeling, a draft report to the city with drainage information that was collected, as well as several improvement scenarios for increasing the drainage capacity of the system. A meeting with city staff to discuss the draft report and evaluate comments, additional inclusions, and suggested changes prior to final submittal of the report. The contract with BW&R is written in a cost plus fixed fee format with an amount not to exceed $30,043.56. Funds for this design contract will be allocated from the carryover of $30,000 of the 2007 Capital Improvement Program in the area of stormwater projects and planning. And it is recommended that the City Commission approve the design contract with BW&R for the Marymount Road drainage study in an amount not to exceed $30,043.56. David Johnson with BW&R is here also, and either myself or him would be able to answer any questions you might have.
Questions from Mr. Place?
I understand we have a lot of areas in Salina that have drainage problems. Is any of the information from this study going to benefit the other areas? I realize this is just specific to the Glen Marymount Road area, but are we going to be able to use any of that information to help us with the other bad areas in Salina
Pretty
also?
much be site-specific.
It has to be site-specific?
Yes.
So this is just going to be for the Marymount Glen section?
For the drainage area that is determined to be for this area, that's correct.
Okay, which I understand encompasses a lot of homes.
Is there any consideration, I believe Glen Avenue is not curb and gutter
That's
going west from Marymount, is that correct?
That's one of the preliminary options I've discussed with BWNR about, what could possibly be done to. We're really looking at anything that can be done to help improve this whole area. So that's something that's already been brought up, possibly rerouting some of the existing drainage to, different systems or anything like that. We're trying to see what we can do, and all options are open right now.
But those options will be covered under this contract?
That's correct.
Any other questions?
This contract does not result in any actual contract documents for bidding. This is simply to outline what needs to be
Strictly a
done, and then there'll
study.
be another design contract later.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Any public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to the commission.
Mayor Venier, I move that we approve the design contract with BWR Corporation for the Marymount Drainage Study in an amount not to exceed $30,043.56.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve a design contract with BWR Corporation for Marymount Drainage not to exceed $30,043.56. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0.
Item 8.4, approval of a request to install no parking signs along Ray Avenue for Coronado School.
Mr. Place.
Thank you once again, Mayor and Commissioners. City staff has been requested by the Police Department, Coronado School, and concerned citizens of the area to investigate the congestion problems faced by Coronado School during peak loading and unloading times. We believe that by installing loading zone signs along the east side of Ray and installing no parking signs along the west side of Ray, in addition to extending the ending time frame from 3:30 to 4 o'clock, will help alleviate the congestion problems currently faced by faculty, students, and parents during these peak times. On April 11th, letters were sent out to the adjacent property owners to inform them of what would be going on and to request feedback. To date, the engineering division has received no comments from these letters. So it is recommended that the City Commission approve the modification of the existing signs along Neal Avenue and the installation of new signs along Ray Avenue, all in the area of Coronado School. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions?
So Ray Avenue will no longer even be loading? It'll be no parking, no loading, no, excuse me, not Ray, Neal.
Neal will continue to have the same signs that they do. It'll just extend
Further?
from 3:30. It'll
Oh,
now
time.
extend to 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And these signs are going to be on Ray, which I live there, so I know exactly what they're talking about, this congestion.
There'll be loading. It'll be no parking, passenger loading on the east side of Ray, and then no parking at all on the west side, all
Okay.
during school days.
Did you run these recommendations by the school folks?
Yes.
And they were
Yes.
agreeable to?
They did update me of one incorrect number I had here. The school actually closes at 3:25. I have listed 3:35.
Any other questions? Any public comment? Not, bring it back to the commission.
Mayor, I'd move that the request to install no parking signs along Ray Avenue for Coronado School be approved as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a request to install no parking signs along Ray Avenue for Coronado School. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.5, award of contract for the 2008 subdivision improvements in the Red Fox Edition, project number 08-2678.
Mr. Place.
Thank you once again, Mayor and Commissioners. On March 17th of this year, the Commission approved Resolution 08-6501, creating a benefit district for the 27 residential lots known as Red Fox Edition. On April 15th, bids were received and opened. APAC, Kansas, had a bid of $530,690.75. Engineer's estimate was $527,208. As you can see, the low bid is above the engineer's estimate for construction. In this case, we feel that the engineer's estimate is a very real estimate of project construction costs, and with the low bid and the engineer's estimate being within 1% of each other, the increased cost is practically negligible. Additionally, the city has adopted the appropriate ordinances to go ahead and award such a bid that is over the engineer's estimate. 100% of the cost of these improvements will be assessed to the benefit district. So it is recommended that the City Commission award the contract for the 2008 subdivision improvements, Red Fox Edition, project number 08-2678, to APAC, Kansas, Shears Division in the amount of $530,690.30. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have on this.
Questions for Mr. Place?
I assume presently all the land's controlled by the developer, and has the developer commented on this?
I have not received any comments.
Is the developer aware that that it is more than the original proposal?
Yes.
And we had no other bids?
No. Unfortunately.
Any other questions? Public comment? I'll bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I'd move we award the contract for 2008 subdivision improvements, Red Fox Edition, project number 08-2678 to APAC, Kansas, Inc., the Shears Division, in the amount of $530,690.30.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to award a contract for 2008 subdivision improvements to the Red Fox Edition in the amount of $530,690.30.
Is it 30 or 75? This says 30, this says 75. Technicality, but
Oh, yeah, good
Every
point.
45 cents counts.
you're not kidding. 45 cents is 45 cents. Okay, just so it goes on the record.
We'll amend the motion for 75 cents. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.6, consider process for making a city appointment to the Development Incentive Program Grant Review Committee.
I'm assuming this is yours, Mr. Gage?
Yeah, I'll take it. Mayor and Commissioners, not too long ago, a couple actions were brought in front of you. One was the creation of a development incentive program from downtown. At the same time, you obviously looked at the downtown facade guidelines and a facade that go along with that. With the development of, or the approval of the development incentive program, it provided an opportunity for you to appoint someone to the advisory board or committee that deals with this. Basically, what we've provided for you is a few options of how you might want to do that. One is you could choose someone from among yourself if you wanted to. It's far enough out that it's not a direct relationship back to your budget or any other activity. You could ask the staff to go back and use the expression of interest forms and try to solicit interest and bring those back in. Or you could use more of an informal process of obtaining citizen interest in the same type of way, but not use the expression of interest forms. We were made aware that it's possible that one of you might be interested, and if you were interested in appointing someone from among you today, you could take that action today. Otherwise, we're probably looking at I would say probably a couple of weeks before you take action. Phil Klima with Salina Downtown Inc. is here. I believe the timing of this, you would like to have someone on as quickly as possible, but I don't know that it paralyzes the program to wait if that's what you'd like to do as well.
Questions for Mr. Gage or Ms. Klima?
So the other 4 members have already been appointed? Is that correct? And what, I guess it doesn't really matter what time this committee meets.
Yes, Commissioners, the other 4 members have been appointed. Beth Vinson from the SDI Board will serve as the SDI Board appointee. Steve Howe and Troy Vansel from the Business Support and Recruitment Committee, and John Nelson from the Design Review Board. So we have a pretty broad spectrum of public input already on the board, on the review committee, and would welcome input directly from the City Commission if possible.
Is there a preference from SDI whether or not it's a commissioner or someone appointed by?
No.
And when do you meet?
Well, I have a packet with me today of applications, and we would like to award those following the next SDI board meeting, which is scheduled the second Tuesday, and I believe that's the 8th of May. So we will be meeting prior to that time if possible.
Okay.
And if we, Mr. Gage, if we decide to appoint a commissioner, then this is how it will be from now until eternity, right?
Yeah, unless at some point either the commissioner lost interest or you chose to appoint someone else, you certainly could do that.
Okay.
And Phil, I didn't know if you don't have any type of term limits at all on.
We do not. This is strictly for 2008, maybe even just the spring edition. So we, as you may or may not remember, there are 2 application periods, one spring and one fall. Spring just closed the 16th of April.
But just for clarification, this is a city commissioner, not an individual. It's being
Well,
appointed.
actually, I think the way it, I believe the way the program is set up, it's just an appointment by the city commission. So I think when you appoint them, you would be appointing them as an individual.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
We like to think our commissioners are individuals as well, so that should work out just fine.
Was there a commissioner who already had expressed interest, did you say?
I was contacted, so I've agreed tentatively that I would serve if nominated.
So moved.
And
Yeah, second.
appointed. Okay.
It has been moved and seconded to appoint Commissioner Abner Perney to the Development Incentive Program Review Committee. Is there any other discussion or public comment?
One question, do they make the awards, or does that come back to us?
Goes to the SDI board.
They make recommendations back to the SDI board, who has the final approval according to the guidelines, and I brought a copy of those with me if you have any questions about that.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0.
Item 8.7, Mayor Board Appointments.
And I will read that list. Veneer, Economic Development, Executive Committee, Chamber of Commerce Board, Salina Economic Development Incentives Council, and the Library Board, Commissioner Jilka, Arts and Humanities Commission, Building Authority Board, Convention and Tourism Committee, Commissioner Perney, Building Authority, and North Central Regional Planning Commission, Commissioner Larson, Housing Authority, Board of Health, Commissioner Peck, Airport Authority, and the Board of Health. And we do not need action on that, is that correct? Okay. Is there any other business to come before the commission? If not, I would accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Adjourned.